Good afternoon. Today we're going to be reading through chapter 23 of Dracula by Bram Stoker. But we're not just going to be reading the words. We're going to be stopping and talking about interesting vocabulary words or interesting phrases as we go. So if you're learning English, if you're an advanced learner of English, this is a wonderful way to improve your vocabulary and increase your understanding of English at a more advanced level. And we're doing this video live, so if you're watching this right now live with me, you can ask questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? Explain this. I don't understand. That's the whole point of doing the video. So I want you to ask questions in the chat, and I will be happy to answer your questions for you. Pachu is here. Hello, Pachu. How are you doing? Good morning. Also, when we finish the chapter, we have been bringing people in from Discord to practice pronunciation, intonation, accentuation, using some of the vocabulary words that we've learned. So if you want to improve your accent, or if you want to improve your ability to understand spoken English, conversational spoken English, then I encourage you not to click away when we finish the chapter, because we spend about an hour working on improving accents. And if you would like to join us, there's a link to the Discord group in the description, so you can join and you can practice along with us if you like. Okay, well, let's get started with chapter 23 of Dracula. Chapter 23, Dr. Seward's Diary, 3rd of October. The time seemed terribly long whilst we were waiting for the coming of Godalming and Quincy Morris. The professor tried to keep our minds active by using them all the time. I could see his beneficent purpose. Well, we've talked about that root word bene, which means good or well or fine. So if someone is beneficent, or if somebody has a beneficent purpose, it's a good purpose. You see that word in things like benefit, bonus, beneficial, benefit. By the side glances which he threw from time to time at Harker, the poor fellow is overwhelmed in misery that is appalling to see. I just want to make a note of overwhelming. I think that would be a good word to practice. Last night he was a frank, happy-looking man with strong, youthful face, full of energy and with dark brown hair. Today he is a drawn, haggard old man. Haggard means looking old, looking tired, looking disorganized. Whose white hair matches his well. Wait a minute. I've lost my place. Whose white hair matches well with the hollow, burning eyes and grief-written lines of his face. His energy is still intact. How do you define that word intact? Let's see. What's the official definition? That's a pretty common word, but if you ask me how to define it, I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. Intact is an adjective. Something is complete, whole, undamaged. Undamaged. What was intact here? Whose white hair matches well with the hollow, burning eyes and grief-written lines in his face. his energy is still intact, so his energy is not damaged. He looks horrible, but he still has a lot of energy. All the crazy things that have been happening to them over the past few days have made him look very tired and old, haggard. But his energy is still intact. His energy is undamaged. In fact, he's like a living flame. This may yet be his salvation, for if all goes well, it will tide him over the despairing period. He will then, in a kind of way, wake again to the realities of life. Poor fellow. I thought my own trouble was bad enough, but his... The professor knows this well enough and is doing his best to keep his mind active. What he's been saying was under the circumstances of absorbing interest. So well as I can remember, here it is. I've studied over and over again since they came into my hands all the papers relating to this monster. I just wanted to check I forgot to check my microphone. I'd like to increase the volume. Okay, maybe that's better. I've studied. The greater seems the necessity to utterly stamp him out. Oh, I better read that over. I've studied over and over again, since they came into my hands, all the papers relating to this monster, and the more I've studied, the greater seems the necessity to utterly stamp him out. And that word utterly means like completely, 100%. All through there are signs of his advance, not only of his power, but of his knowledge of it. As I learned from the researches of my friend Arminius of Budapest, he was in life a most wonderful man, soldier, statesman, alchemist, which later was the highest development of science, knowledge of his time. He had a mighty brain, a learning beyond compare, and a heart that knew no fear and no remorse. Remorse is feeling bad if you've done something. He dared even to attend the Scholomance. What's a Scholomance? A legendary school of magic at the occult from Eastern European folklore, particularly associated with Romania and Transylvania. So that's a school where they teach people evil, dark magic. He dared even to attend the Scholomance, and there was no branch of knowledge of his time which he did not essay. Well, in him the brain powers survived the physical death, though it would seem that the memory was not all complete. In some faculties of mind, he has been and is only a child, but he's growing. And some things that were childish at first are now of man's stature. He's experimenting and doing it well. And if it had not been that we have crossed his path, he would be yet, he may be yet, if we fail, the father or furtherer of a new order of beings whose road must lead through death, not life. Harker groaned. Groaning is, Harker groaned and said, And this is all arrayed against my darling. But how is he experimenting? The knowledge may help us defeat him. He has all along, since his coming, been trying his power. Slowly but surely, that big child brain of his is working. Well, for us, it is as yet a child brain. For had he dared at the first to attempt certain things, he would long ago have been beyond our power. However, he means to succeed. And a man who has centuries before him can afford to wait and go slow. Festina lente may well be his motto. Lente means slow, but I don't know what festina means. Let's translate that. Festina lente. David Garcia says hello. Hello, David. How are you doing tonight? Let's see. Festina lente means make haste slowly. So make haste means hurry up. So that's kind of a contradiction. Hurry up slowly. So be quick, but be very careful about it. Take your time. But hurry up. I fail to understand, said Harker wearily. Oh, do be more plain to me. Perhaps grief and trouble are dulling my brain. The professor laid his hand tenderly on his shoulder as he spoke. Ah, my child, I will be plain. Do you not see how of late this monster has been creeping into the knowledge experimentally? How he's been making use of the zoophagous patient to effect his entry into friend John's home for your vampire, though in all afterwards he can come, when and how he will, must at first make entry only when asked thereto by an inmate. But these are not his most important experiments. Do we not see how at first all these so great boxes were moved by others? He knew not then, but that must be so. But all the time, that so great child brain of his was growing, and he began to consider whether he might not himself move the box. So he began to help. And then, when he found that this be all right, he tried to move them all alone. And so he progress, and he scatter these graves of him, and none but he know where they are hidden. He may have intended to bury them deep in the ground, so that only he use them in the night, or at such time as he can change his form. They do him equal well, and none may know these are his hiding place. But, my child, do not despair. This knowledge came to him just too late. Already all of his lairs but one be sterilized as for him. And before the sunset, this shall be so. Then he have no place where he can move and hide. I delayed this morning, that so we might be sure. Is there not more at stake for us than for him? Then why not be more careful than him? But by my clock, it is 1 hour, and already, if all be well, friend Arthur and Quincy are on their way to us. Today is our day. And we must go shore, if slow, and lose no chance. See, there are 5 of us when those absent ones return. Whilst we were speaking, we were startled by a knock at the hall door. We've seen the word startled many times, and that means to be very surprised. They're talking about this scary thing going to kill a vampire, and then suddenly, who's that? Whilst we were speaking, we were startled by a knock at the hall door, the double postman's knock of the telegraph boy. We all moved out to the hall with one impulse, and Van Helsing, holding up his hand to us to keep silence, stepped to the door and opened it. The boy handed in a dispatch. The professor closed the door again, and after looking at the direction, opened it and read it aloud. Look out for D. He has just now, 12:45, come from Carfax hurriedly and hastened towards the south. He seems to be going the round and may want to see you, Mina. We've talked about the word round being used, doing your rounds or going your rounds. If you have a job where you have to go from one place to another place, like you have a route, that's doing your rounds. So imagine if you're a doctor and then you have to visit each hospital room. That's doing your rounds. Or if you're a postal worker, and you go from house to house every day, you go to the same houses to deliver mail. That's doing your rounds. So whenever you have a job where you always visit the same places and maybe even at the same time, you have a schedule, that's doing your rounds. So if D is doing his rounds, he's visiting all of his special places that he always visits. There was a pause, broken by Jonathan Harker's voice. Now, God be thanked, we shall soon meet. Van Helsing turned to him quickly and said, God will act in his own way and time. Do not fear, and do not rejoice as yet, for what we wish for at the moment may be our own undoings. I care for nothing now, he answered hotly, except to wipe out this brute from the face of creation. I would sell my soul to do it. Oh, hush, hush, my child. Hush means be quiet, shut up. Hush is rude, but maybe if you say hush, hush, that may be the way that you talk to a baby, and it doesn't sound so bad. That's why he says hush, hush. If he just said hush, that's a little bit rude. But if you say hush, hush, that's sort of the way maybe you would talk to a baby crying. Oh, hush, hush, my child, said Van Helsing. God does not purchase souls in this wise, and the devil, though he may purchase, does not keep faith. But God is merciful and just, and knows your pain and your devotion to the dear Madam Mina. Think you how her pain would be doubled did she but hear your wild words. Do not fear, any of us. We're all devoted to this cause, and today shall see the end. The time is coming for action. Today, this vampire is a limit to the powers of man. Until sunset, he may not change. It will take him time to arrive here. See, it is 20 minutes past 1, and there are yet some times before he can hither come. Be he never so quick, what we must hope for is that my Lord Arthur and Quincy arrive first. About half an hour after we had received Mrs. Harker's telegram, there came a quiet, resolute knock at the door. Resolute means you've made a decision and you're going to do it. So resolute here, maybe that means like confident. It was quiet, but there was no hesitation. So it was the knock of somebody very confident. It was a resolute knock. You know, sometimes if you're knocking on someone's door and you don't know the person, you might hesitate a little bit. But this is a confident knock, a resolute knock. Oh, well, this is funny because I just spent a few minutes talking about what a wonderful knock this was, and then it says, it was just an ordinary knock, such as is given hourly by thousands of gentlemen. But it made the professor's heart and mind beat loudly. We looked at each other, and together moved out into the hall. We each held ready to use our various armaments. Arms are weapons like guns and swords, armaments, guns, swords, that sort of thing. But because they're preparing for a vampire, their armaments are a crucifix, maybe some holy water, something like that. The spiritual in the left hand and the mortal in the right. Well, that's right. So they have the religious items in one hand, and in the other hand, they have weapons that can kill the vampire, like a sharp wooden stick, or I don't remember the other things. I mean, I think we usually say silver bullet, but I'm not sure that's exactly what they said here in the book. I don't remember. I just remember thinking, oh, that's different from what I knew. Van Helsing pulled back the latch. I think we've talked about that word latch before. That word has come to our attention before, not just in this book, but also in this book. But I think it's good to know this word. It's something that it's sort of an everyday thing, but it's not something that you typically learn in an English class. These are latches. Different types of latches. Van Helsing pulled back the latch, and holding the door half open, stood back, having both hands ready for action. The gladness of our hearts must have been shown upon our faces, when on the step, close to the door, we saw Lord Godalming and Quincey Morris. They came quickly in, and closed the door behind them, the former saying, as they moved along the hall, "It's all right. We found both places, 6 boxes in each, and we destroyed them all." "Destroyed?" asked the professor. "For him." We were silent for a minute. And then Quincey said, "There's nothing to do but to wait here. If, however, he doesn't turn up by 5 o'clock, we must start off. For it won't do to leave Mrs. Harker alone after sunset." Okay, I just want to make a note of this phrasal verb to turn up, which means appear. So let's go back and read that again. "There's nothing to do but wait here. If, however, he doesn't turn up, if he doesn't appear by 5 o'clock, we must start off." Now, we were talking about how the word off, when used in a phrasal verb, can sometimes mean to leave a place. And that's what it means here. To start off means to begin the process of leaving. So if he doesn't turn up by 5 o'clock, we have to start thinking about leaving here. We have to think about going away. "He will be here before long now," said Van Helsing, who had been consulting his pocketbook. "Nota bene." So again, we have that root word bene, which means good or nice or something like that. Nota means note. So good note, but I get, or maybe that means good night. Wait, let's see. Nota bene. Maybe that's Italian for good night. I don't know what the Italian word for night is. It could be nota. Wait, let's see. I think it might be, actually, good night in Italian. Note well. Oh, well, yeah, it is Latin. Note well, which means what? Used to draw attention to important information. So think about this carefully. Take note. Uh, Concentrate on this. Oh, gosh, my eyesight's really bad today. I can't read Pachu's comment. Did you say, is that a double N? Oh, you know what? Maybe I think I have to go get my glasses. I can't read tonight. I can't read what you're saying. I'll be right back. If I can find my... Okay, I'm going to be right back. I have to get my glasses. I can't read. Okay. Now I can read it. It says, Nota bene. I thought you typed an M. I was seeing an M. Oh, no, you did. Okay, you did. You typed double N. All right. Note well, which means pay attention to this. This is very important. But I don't think it's something that you would use in contemporary English, so don't worry about memorizing it. Nota bene, in Madam's telegram, he went south from Carfax. So he's saying, hey, pay attention to this. He went south from Carfax. That means he went to cross the river, and he could only do so at slack of tide, which should be something before 1 o'clock. That he went south has a meaning for us. He is as yet only suspicious, and he went from Carfax first to the place where he would suspect interference least. You must have been at Bermondsey you must have been at Bermondsey only a short while before him. Pachi says not a common word. No, it's not a common phrase. You don't have to worry about that one. Just pay attention to that word bene because it appears in a lot of words and it always means something good. That he is not here already shows that he went to Mile End next. This took him some time, for he would then have to be carried over the river in some way. Believe me, my friends, we shall not have long to wait now. We should have already some plan of attack, so that we may throw away no chance. Hush! Remember, that means shh, be quiet, shut up. Hush! There's no time now. Have all your arms. So now here, this does not mean arms like this. It means guns or weapons, weapons of destruction, weapons of defense, like your crucifix and your wooden stake. Have all your arms. Be ready. He held up a warning hand as he spoke, for we all could hear a key softly inserted in the lock of the hall door. I could not but admire, even at such a moment, the way in which a dominant spirit asserted itself. In all our hunting parties and adventures in the different parts of the world, Quincy Morris had always been the one to arrange the plan of action, and Arthur and I had been accustomed to obey him implicitly. Now the old habit seemed to be renewed instinctively. With a swift glance around the room, he at once laid out our plan of attack, and without speaking a word, with a gesture. So remember, gesture really just means movement, and here it probably means an arm movement or a hand movement. With a gesture, placed us each in position. So he didn't touch them, but he he directed them with his hands. Van Helsing, Harker, and I were just behind the door, so that when it was opened, the professor could guard it, whilst we stepped between the incomer and the door. Godalming, behind, and Quincy in front, stood just out of sight, ready to move in front of the window. We waited in a suspense that made the seconds pass with nightmare slowness. Now, we talked about the phrasal verb drag on earlier this morning, and this is a place where you could use that phrasal verb. We waited in suspense that made the seconds drag on. But here they just said with nightmare slowness. The slow, careful steps came along the hall. The Count was evidently prepared for some surprise. At least he feared it. Suddenly, with a single bound, this means like a jump. A bound in this case means like a jump. Suddenly, with a single bound, he leaped into the room, winning a way past us before any of us could raise a hand to stay him. There was something so panther-like in the movement. Let's look at a picture of what a panther is. Yeah, this looks like my dog. Maybe I should have named her Panther, because she looks like this. maybe I don't have a pet dog. Maybe I have a panther. There was something so panther-like in the movement, something so unhuman, that it seemed to sober us all from the shock of his coming. So remember, sober is like the opposite of drunk. So are you drunk? No, I'm sober. That means no, I'm not drunk. I'm the opposite of drunk. But imagine the very strange experience of the door opening and this scary sort of monster just jumping into the room. For a minute, you're kind of in a shock, like you're drunk. But what did they say? There was something so unhuman that it seemed to sober us from the shock of his coming. He was so much like an animal or something different than a human that it made them come out of this surprise that they were in. The first to act was Harker, who, with a quick movement, threw himself before the door, leading into the room in front of the house. As the Count saw us, a horrible sort of snarl passed over his face. A snarl is a look of violence or hatred. That's a snarl. Showing the eye teeth long and pointed. But the evil smile as quickly passed into a cold stare of a lion-like disdain. Disdain means like hate. His expression again changed as, with a single impulse, we all advanced upon him. So they all came towards him. They advanced towards him. It was a pity that we had not some better organized plan of attack, for even at the moment I wondered what we were to do. I did not myself know whether our lethal weapons would avail us anything. So all they had were these superstitions, it's hard to believe because they're dealing with this sort of ghost monster, and there's nothing in reality to tell them how to deal with this situation. So they're using superstitions. Have garlic, have a crucifix, have some holy water, use a wooden stick, a sharp wooden stick to kill him. So of course they're not feeling very confident that this is going to work because it sounds pretty crazy. Harker evidently meant to try the matter, for he had ready his great kukri knife. I don't know, let's see what a kukri knife is. I don't know what that is. Oh boy, that's quite a knife. This is a kukri knife. The blow was a powerful one. Only the diabolical quickness of the Count's leap back saved him. So a blow is a hit. So the hit was powerful. He took the knife and tried to hit him. And now diabolical, that means evil. It's related to the word devil. Devil, diablo is the same word. So diabolical means evil, like the devil. The diabolical quickness of the Count's leap back. A leap is a jump. Saved him. And Pachu says this word may come from Nepal. Kukuri knife. Let's see. It seems like it could be an Indian type of word. Let's ask ChatGPT. Pachu, is that a knife that you would find in Nepal? Have you seen knives like that there? They look pretty scary. Let's see. Yeah. According to ChatGPT and Pachu, it comes from the Nepali language and is deeply tied to the culture and traditions of Nepal. It refers to the distinctive curved blade that has become an iconic symbol of Nepali heritage and the famed Gurkha soldiers. But Pachu, what is a Gurkha? A second less, and the trenchant blade would have shorn through his heart. As it was, the point just cut the cloth of his coat, making a wide gap whence a bundle of banknotes and a steam of gold fell out. a stream, and a stream of gold fell out. The expression on the Count's face was so hellish that for a moment I feared for Harker, though I saw him throw the terrible knife aloft. Again, for another stroke, instinctively, I moved forward with a protective impulse, holding the crucifix and wafer in my left hand. I felt a mighty power fly along my arm, and it was without surprise that I saw the monster cower back. So remember, a coward, if you're a coward, that's the opposite of being brave. You coward! But to cower is like this. Don't hit me, please. That's cowering. Don't hit me. So with the wafer, and what did he have with him? I felt a mighty power. Oh, he had the crucifix, and he had the holy wafer, the holy bread. So with those two things, he cowered. Oh no! I felt a mighty power fly along my arm, and it was without surprise that I saw the monster cower back before a similar movement made spontaneously by each one of us. It would be impossible to describe the expression of hate and baffled malignity. So again, that word mal means evil, bad, something bad. So bene means good and mal means bad. Baffled malignity of anger and hellish rage which came over the Count's face. His waxen hue became greenish-yellow by the contrast of his burning eyes, and the red scar on the forehead showed on the pallid skin like a palpitating wound. The next instant, with a sinuous dive, he swept under Harker's arm, ere his blow could fall, and grasping a handful of the money from the floor, dashed across the room. Dashing means running. He ran across the room. He dashed across the room, threw himself at the window. Amid the crash and glitter of the falling glass, he tumbled into the flagged area below. Through the sound of the shivering glass, I could hear the ting of gold. Ting! That's like the sound of metal hitting each other. Imagine coins hitting each other. Ting, ting, ting. As some of the sovereigns fell on the flagging, we ran over and saw him spring unhurt from the ground. We've talked about that word spring before, meaning to jump. So jumping up, unhurt from the ground. He jumped out the window with the broken glass, and then he just got off unhurt from the ground. He sprung unhurt from the ground. He, rushing up the steps, crossed the flag yard and pushed open the stable door, and there he turned and spoke to us. "You think to baffle me? With your pale faces all in a row, like sheep in a butcher's. You shall be sorry yet, each one of you. You think you have left me without a place to rest, but I have more. My revenge is just begun. I spread it over centuries, and time is on my side. Your girls that you all love are mine already, and through them you and others shall yet be mine. My creatures, to do my bidding, to be my jackals when I want to feed." Bah! Okay, so jackals are wolves. Bidding means to do a request, to make a request, to serve. So you'll be my servants. You'll do my bidding. Whatever I tell you to do, you will do. If you bid someone, you're making a request of someone. So you will do my bidding. You'll be my jackals, my wolves, when I want to feed. Bah! With a contemptuous sneer. It's a look of hate. And contempt is also hate. So sneer is a look of hate. And contempt is a feeling of hate. with a contemptuous sneer. He passed quickly through the door, and we heard the rusty bolt creak. Creaking is the sound of something old, like a door. That's a creaking door. Or if you walk on an old floor, the floor might creak. We heard the rusty bolt creak as he fastened it behind him. A door beyond opened and shut. The first of us to speak was the professor. Realizing the difficulty of following him through the stable, we moved toward the hall. Pachu says, "Ba" seems like an Indian word. Well, "ba" is just it's an exclamation, which is like, I win, is kind of what it means. Ba! That means I win, you lose. I'm laughing at you. So it's just really an exclamation word. What does it mean in Indian languages? Does it mean something similar? Bah is a way to dismiss something. Doesn't matter. It's not important. Bah. It means well done. I think it means the opposite in English. So if an Indian says to you, bah, they're saying well done. But in English, it would sound like they're laughing at you. We've learned something, much. Notwithstanding his brave words, he fears us. He fears time. He fears want. For if not, why he hurry so? His very tone betray him, or my ears deceive. Why take that money? You follow quick. You're hunters of the wild beast, and understand it so. For me, I make sure that nothing here may be of use to him, if so that he returns. As he spoke, he put the money remaining in his pocket, took the title deeds and the bundle as Harker had left them, and swept the remaining things into the open fireplace, where he set fire to them with a match. Godalming and Morris had rushed out into the yard, and Harker had lowered himself from the window to follow the Count. He had, however, bolted the stable door, and by the time they had forced it open, there was no sign of him. Van Helsing and I tried to make inquiry at the back of the house, but the mews was deserted, and no one had seen him depart. It was now late in the afternoon, and sunset was not far off. We had to recognize that our game was up. When you say the game was up, that means the game is finished. There's nothing more you can do to win. With heavy hearts, we agreed with the professor when he said, "Let us go back to Madam Mina. Poor, poor dear Madam Mina. All we can do just now is done, and we can there at least protect her. But we need not despair. To despair means to feel no hope. All hope is gone. But we need not despair. We need not feel bad like there's no hope. There's but one more earth box, and we must try to find it. When that's done, all may yet be well." I could see that he spoke as bravely as he could to comfort Harker. The poor fellow was quite broken down. Do you remember we talked about that word breakdown before? It's a phrasal verb. It could mean many things, but a lot of times what it means is to lose control of your emotions. To feel very sad or depressed and to lose control of your emotions. And that's sort of what it means here. The poor fellow was quite broken down. You could see that he was losing control of his emotions, and he felt very sad and very depressed. Now and again he gave a low groan, which he could not suppress. He was thinking of his wife. With sad hearts we came back to my house, where we found Mrs. Harker waiting us, with an appearance of cheerfulness which did honor to her bravery and unselfishness. Pachu says broken down, losing control of emotions. So that usually means you start crying. Normally if you feel like crying, you probably don't do it in front of people. But if the feeling is so strong, you break down and you cry. You lose control of your emotions and cry. So it's not just losing control, it's losing control of your emotions. When she saw our faces, her own became as pale as death. For a second or two, her eyes were closed, as if she were in secret prayer. And then she said cheerfully, "I can never thank you all enough. Oh, my poor darling." As she spoke, she took her husband's gray head in her hands and kissed it. "Lay your poor head here and rest it. All will yet be well, dear. God will protect us, if he so will it, and his good intent." The poor fellow groaned. Groaned. There was no place for words in his sublime misery. We had a sort of perfunctory supper together, and I think it cheered us all up somewhat. Somewhat means a little bit. It was perhaps the mere animal heat of food to hungry people, for none of us had eaten anything since breakfast, or the sense of companionship may have helped us, but anyhow, we were all less miserable, and saw morrow not altogether without hope. Pacha is asking about perfunctory. That's a pretty fancy word. Let's define it. That's not a word that you would probably use in typical conversation, but it's not a word that you'll see it sometimes. But I don't even really know what it means. I've heard it before though. Something done quickly, without care, attention, or enthusiasm, often out of habit or obligation. True to our promise, we told Mrs. Harker everything which had passed, and although she grew snowy white at times when danger had seemed to threaten her husband, and red at others when his devotion to her was manifested, she listened bravely and with calmness, and when we came to the part where Harker had rushed at the Count so recklessly. So being reckless, that means not considering the consequence, doing crazy things because you don't think about the consequence of what will happen next. Pachu says the New York Times uses such a word. You might find it in the New York Times, that's for sure. Perfunctory. Or perfunctory. Perfunctory. She clung to her husband's arm and held it tight, as though her clinging is holding something very tight. And as though her clinging could protect him from any harm that might come. She said nothing, however, till the narration was all done, and matters had been brought up to the present time. Then, without letting go her husband's hand, she stood up amongst us and spoke. Oh, that I could give any idea of the scene, of that sweet, good woman, and all the radiant beauty of her youth and animation. Radiate means something goes out. So, for example, let's just take a look at that minute for. I don't know if you recognize this, but this is you only really see these in old buildings now. You don't see them in modern buildings. But this is a radiator. This is a way that people used to heat the rooms or the houses. And you still see that in older buildings. And it's called a radiator because the heat comes out like this. So if something is radiating, radiation, radiate, it means it's going out, it's giving out. So Mina radiates beauty and youthfulness and sweetness. That's what comes from her. That's the kind of energy that comes from her, that radiates from her. That sweet, sweet, good, good woman in all that radiant beauty of her youth and animation, with the red scar on her forehead, of which she was conscious, and which we saw with grinding of our teeth, remembering whence and how it came, her loving kindness against our grim hate, her tender faith against all our fears and doubting, and we, knowing so far, as symbols went, she with all her goodness and purity and faith was outcast from God. Jonathan, she said, and the word sounded like music on her lips. It was so full of love and tenderness. Jonathan, dear, and you all, my true, true friends, I want you to bear something in mind through all of this dreadful time. I know that you must fight, that you must destroy, even as you destroyed the false Lucy, so that the true Lucy might live hereafter. But it's not a work of hate. That poor soul who has wrought all this misery is the saddest case of all. Just think what will be his joy when he too is destroyed, and his worser part than his better part may have spiritual immortality. You must be pitiful to him too, though it may not hold your hands from his destruction. So she's reminding them, you killed Lucy, but not from hate. You killed her out of mercy to free her from having to live forever as a monster. And she's saying, remember also when you do this to the Count, that what you're really doing is giving him freedom, and you should have mercy on him, and you shouldn't do it out of hate. Don't kill him out of hate. Do it out of love to free him, so he doesn't have to be an eternal monster anymore. As she spoke, I could see her husband's face darken and draw together, as though the passion in him were shriveling his being, to its core. Shriveling means to become small, to shrink. Let's look at. I wonder what kind of pictures we could find with shriveled. I hope it's. This. You have to be careful with this word shriveled, because it could show many things. Let's see. Okay, so we have that looks like a shriveled apple. Mostly they're showing fruit with shriveled. Becoming smaller, shrinking. I'm kind of surprised that the only thing they show is fruit or vegetables. But you get the idea. It's when something becomes smaller. I just wish they would show something besides plants. Oh well. let's see, how did they use it here? As she spoke, I could see her husband's face darken and draw together, as though the passion in him were shriveling his being to its core. So his strong feelings were making him, maybe you can imagine the fruit becoming smaller because it's dying. So his passion is, let's see, let's read that. That's kind of complicated. The passion in him were shriveling his being to its core. So his passion was killing him, killing his spirit, making his spirit smaller, like that fruit that you saw. Instinctively, the clasp of his wife's hand, a clasp is like this. This is a clasp. Not the sound, the way this is connected. The clasp of on his wife's hand grew closer, till his knuckles looked white. These are your knuckles here. She did not flinch from the pain which I knew she must have suffered, but looked at him with eyes that were more appealing than ever. As she stopped speaking, he leaped to his feet, almost tearing his hand from hers as he spoke. May God give him into my hand just before long enough to destroy that earthly life of him which we are aiming at. If beyond it I could send his soul forever and ever to burning hell, I would do it. So, the wife is saying, oh, be kind to him. Kill him in kindness. Don't kill him out of hate. That's bad to do it out of hate. And the husband says, I want to send him to hell forever. Pachu's asking about flinch. Flinching is when you're afraid it's kind of, what was that word we were just talking about? Cowering. Oh, please don't hit me. Flinching is if somebody goes like that and you move like that, that's flinching. It's like moving out of the way because you're afraid you're going to be hit. How did they use it here? She did not flinch from the pain. So they're talking and he's clasping her hand, but he's got such strong feelings. He's holding her hand very tight. And she didn't flinch from the pain. She didn't show fear or any kind of emotion, any kind of signal of pain. Oh, that hurts. I once met somebody with a very strong handshake. He would grab your hand and it would hurt. Maybe you would flinch. Ow, that hurts. She did not flinch from the pain, which I knew she must have suffered, but looked at him with eyes that were more appealing than ever. As she stopped speaking, he leaped to his feet, almost tearing his hand from hers as he spoke. So now he's saying, no, I'll send him to hell. I don't care about him. I hate him. May God give him into my hand just for long enough to destroy that earthly life of him which we're aiming at. If beyond it I could send his soul forever and ever to burning hell, I would do it. Oh, hush. Oh, hush, in the name of the good God, don't say such things, Jonathan, my husband, or you will crush me with fear and horror. Just think, my dear, I've been thinking all this long, long day of it, that perhaps some day I too may need such pity, and that some other like you, and with equal cause for anger, may deny it to me. Oh, my husband, indeed, I would have spared you such a thought, had there been another way, but I pray that God may not have treasured your wild words, except as the heartbroken wail. A wail is a cry. Ah, that's a wail. Your heartbroken wail of a very loving and sorely stricken man. O God, let these poor white hairs go in evidence of what he has suffered, who all his life has done no wrong, and on whom so many sorrows have come. We men were all in tears now. There was no resisting them, and we wept openly. Weeping is crying. Weep, wept, wept. We wept openly. We didn't hide it. We just cried. She wept too, to see that her sweeter counsels had prevailed. So, prevailed here, that means like winning. So her advice won. So everybody was in agreement. They would not approach this act with hatred. Even though they hated him, they would try to kill him out of love instead of hatred. I don't see how it matters. Maybe I have no heart. She wept too, to see her sweeter counsels had prevailed, to see that her advice had won. Her husband flung himself on his knees beside her, and putting his arms around her, hid his face in the folds of her dress. Van Helsing beckoned to us. Beckoning means, come here, come on, come over here. Van Helsing beckoned to us, and we stole out of the room, leaving the two loving hearts alone with their God. Before they retired, the professor fixed up the room against any coming of the vampire, and assured Mrs. Harker that she might rest in peace. She tried to school herself to the belief, and manifestly for her husband's sake, tried to seem content. To seem content means to seem happy, to seem pleased, to seem satisfied. It was a brave struggle, and was, I think and believe, not without its reward. Van Helsing had placed at hand a bell which either of them was to sound in case of an emergency. When they had retired, Quincy, Godalming, and I arranged that we should sit up, dividing the night between us, and watch over the safety of the poor stricken lady. The first watch falls to Quincy, so the rest of us shall be off to bed as soon as we can. And we've talked about using that preposition off to mean leaving a place. To be off to bed means to leave wherever you are and go to bed. And that's very common to say, well, I'm off to bed. That means I'm leaving here and I'm going to bed. Godalming had already turned in. To turn in means to go to bed. For his is the second watch. Now that my work is done, I too shall go to bed. Jonathan Harker's Journal, 3rd and 4th of October. Pachi has written, off to bed. Pachi says, kill with kindness. Yeah, it's really be off to bed. You have to use the verb to be here. So you say, I am off to bed. He is off to bed. They are off to bed. You have to use the verb to be with that phrase. And also with turning in, well, no, you don't. I'm just thinking of the present progressive. I'm turning in. You usually use it in the present progressive. He turned in at 10 o'clock. That means he went to bed at 10 o'clock. Third and 4th of October, close to midnight. I thought yesterday would never end. There was over me a yearning for sleep. Yearning, we've seen that word many times. That's a very strong desire in your heart. So I desired sleep very much. I yearned for sleep very much. And some sort of blind belief that to wake would be to find things changed, and that any change must now be for the better. Before we parted, we discussed what our next step was to be, but we could arrive at no result. All we knew was that the one earth box remained, and that the Count alone knew where it was. If he chooses to lie hidden, he may baffle us for years. And in the meantime, the thought is too horrible. I dare not think of it, even now. This I know, that if ever there was a woman who was all perfection, that one is my poor, wronged darling. I loved her 1,000 times more for her sweet pity of last night, a pity that made my own hate of the monster seem despicable. Despicable means horrible, easy to hate. Surely God will not permit the world to be the poorer by the loss of such a creature. This is hope to me. We're all drifting reefwards now. And faith is our only anchor. Thank God, Mina is sleeping, and sleeping without dreams. I fear that her dreams might be like, with such terrible memories to ground them in. Let me read that again. I fear what her dreams might be like, with such terrible memories to ground them in. She's been so calm within my seeing since the sun set. Then for a while there came over her face a repose which was like spring after the blasts of March. A blast is an explosion, but in this case I think he's talking about the wind, the heavy winds of March. I thought at the time that it was the softness of the red sunset on her face. But somehow, now I think it has a deeper meaning. I'm not sleepy myself, though I am weary. Weary means to be tired. Weary to death. However, I must try to sleep. For there is tomorrow to think of, and there's no rest for me until later. I must have fallen asleep, for I was awakened by Mina, who was sitting up in bed with a startled look on her face. Remember, startled means surprised. I could see easily, for we did not leave the room in darkness. She'd placed a warning hand over my mouth. And now she whispered in my ear, "Hush, there's someone in the corridor." Corridor is a hallway. I got up softly and, crossing the room, gently opened the door. And just outside, stretched on a mattress, lay Mr. Morris, wide awake. He raised a warning hand of silence, and he whispered to me, "Hush, go back to bed. It's all right. One of us will be here all night. We don't mean to take any chances." His look and gesture forbade discussion. So I came back and told Mina, and she sighed, and positively a shadow of a smile stole over her poor, pale face. She put her arms around me and said softly, "Oh, thank God for good, brave men." And with a sigh, she sank back again to sleep. I write this now, and I'm not sleepy, though I must try again. 4th of October, morning. Once again, during the night, I was awakened by Mina. This time we had all had a good sleep, for the gray of the coming dawn. Remember, dawn is the sunrise. For the gray of the coming dawn was making the windows into sharp oblongs, and the glass flame was like a speck rather than a disk of light. She said to me hurriedly, "Go, call the professor. I want to see him at once." "Why?" I asked. "I have an idea. I suppose it must have come in the night and matured without my knowing it. He must hypnotize me before the dawn, and then I shall be able to speak. Go quick, dearest. The time is getting close." If you don't know the word hypnotize, that's a way of putting someone in a state where their unconscious is stronger than their conscious. You know, sometimes it's believed that your unconscious mind holds a lot of information, but you don't have access to it. It's sort of hidden or secret in your mind. But if you hypnotize someone, you put them in a state where the conscious mind sort of disappears, or the wall falls of the conscious mind, and then you have access to the information of the unconscious mind. So she's saying, send for Professor Van Helsing, have him hypnotize me, have him put me in a state where he can access the information in my unconscious mind. I will go, he said, and hurried to the professor's room. 2 or 3 minutes later, Van Helsing was in the room, in his dressing gown, and Mr. Morris and Lord Godalming were with Dr. Seward at the door asking questions. When the professor saw Mina, a smile, a positive smile, ousted the anxiety of his face. He rubbed his hands together. He rubbed his hands and he said, "Oh, my dear Madam Mina, this is indeed a change. See, friend Jonathan, we have got our dear Madam Mina as of old back to us today." And then turning to her, he said cheerfully, "And what am I to do for you? For at this hour you do not want me for nothing." "I want you to hypnotize me," she said. "Do it before dawn. Do it before the sun rises, before the sun comes up. For I feel that I can speak and speak freely. Be quick, for the time is short." Without a word, he motioned her to sit up in bed. Looking fixedly at her, he commenced to make passes in front of her from over the top of her head downward. He commenced to make passes in front of her from over the top of her head downward, with each hand in turn. I don't know, maybe like this? I don't really understand what he's doing. Somehow he's trying to access her unconscious mind. Mina gazed at him fixedly for a few minutes, during which my own heart beat like a trip hammer, for I felt that some crisis was at hand. When something is at hand, that means it's very close, it's very near. So some horrible thing is very close, very near. Some horrible thing is about to happen. Gradually her eyes closed, and she sat stock still, only by the gentle heaving. Heaving means pulling, but when you talk about somebody's chest heaving, that's because you can see that they're breathing from their chest. Their chest is heaving. Only by the gentle heaving of her bosom. This is the bosom here. Only by the gentle heaving of her bosom could one know that she was alive. The professor made a few more passes and then stopped, and I could see that his forehead was covered with great beads of perspiration. Mina opened her eyes, but she did not seem the same woman. There was a faraway look in her eyes, and her voice had a sad dreaminess, which was new to me. Raising his hands to impose silence, the professor motioned to me to bring the others in, and they came in on tiptoe, closing the door behind them, and stood at the foot of the bed, looking on. Mina appeared not to see them. The stillness was broken by Van Helsing's voice, speaking in a low, level tone, which would not break the current of her thoughts. "Mohammed is here. Hello, Mohammed." "Where are you?" The answer came in a neutral way. "I don't know. Sleep has no place it can call its own." For several minutes there was silence. Mina sat rigid. Rigid means it's kind of the opposite of flexible. So flexible means moving. You can move this way, you can move that way, you can move this way, you can move that way. But rigid means like this, not moving, no moving, can't move. Mina sat rigid, and the professor staring at her fixedly. The rest of us hardly dared to breathe. The room was growing lighter. Without taking his eyes from Mina's face, Dr. Van Helsing motioned to me to pull up the blind. So I did so, and the day seemed just upon us. A red streak shot up, and a rosy light seemed to diffuse itself through the room. On the instant, the professor spoke again. Muhammad says we took this word in a which word? Muhammad is remembering a word from a previous book or a previous chapter of this book, but I'm not sure which one. Where are you now? The answer came dreamily, but with intention. It were as though she were interpreting something. I've heard her use the same tone when reading her shorthand notes. I don't know. It's all so strange to me. What do you see? I can see nothing. It's all dark. What do you hear? I could detect the strain in the professor's patient voice. A lapping of water. Let's see. I think we have to talk about that word lapping for a moment. I wonder why... Let me try something else here. Okay, you know what a wave is, I'm sure. You know, waves are big, they're in the ocean. But, you know, if you are on a river or a lake and the water is moving very slowly, you know, actually imagine a boat. Imagine a boat moving in the water, and you can hear like very gentle sound of water moving because of the boat, or maybe somebody swimming, or maybe just the water hitting the side. It's a very gentle, relaxing sound. It's not like the ocean with the loud waves. That's lapping water. Muhammad says rigid. Yeah, I think I do remember talking about the word rigid earlier. I don't remember when, though. It's all a big blur to me. So the professor says, "What do you hear?" I could detect the strain in the professor's patient voice. The lapping of water. It's gurgling by. Gurgling is... That's gurgling. It's really the sound of liquid moving, but it's not a very nice sound. And little waves leap. Leaping is jumping. I can hear them outside. Then you're on a ship. We all looked at each other, trying to glean something each from the other. We were afraid to think. Muhammad says it was today. It was one of the 4 words. Oh my gosh, really? Rigid? I don't think so. I think this morning we did sentimental and oh god. Can you believe I made videos about these words earlier today and I can't remember them. Sentimental and cornered, and there was a phrasal verb, drag on. What was the other one? I can't remember. I don't think it was rigid though. But I do remember talking about rigid. What else do you hear? Oh, wait, We all looked at each other, trying to glean something each from the other. We were afraid to think. The answer came quick. Oh, yes. What else do you hear? The sound of men stamping overhead. Stamping is the sound of feet. The sound of men stamping overhead as they run about. There's the creaking of a chain. Creaking is... Imagine an old door. There's the creaking of an old chain and the loud tinkle as the check of the capstan falls into the ratchet. Okay, these are sea terms now. Capstan, ratchet. I don't really know what those are. Something to do with a ship. Let's see, capstan. I've heard that before in relation to a ship, but I just don't really know anything about ships. Capstan. A mechanical device used for moving or lifting heavy objects, typically on ships or in docks. So let's look at a picture of a capstan. So maybe you turn this and then it will lift something heavy onto the ship, or it will lift something heavy off of a ship. We can see all these pictures. Okay, so you get the idea. Now, a ratchet... I don't know what a ratchet is either. Let's see. That's kind of a bad word. It's kind of an offensive word these days for something. But I don't know what... Let's see. So I'm going to ask, what is a ratchet related to ships? It's a mechanical device that allows movement in one direction while preventing motion in the opposite direction. Well, shit, I have no idea what that could be. Let's see, ship ratchet. No, there are no pictures of it. They just show spaceships. It's some part of a boat. Probably an old part of a boat. I don't even know if it would still be in use. The sound of men stamping overhead as they run about. There's the creaking of a chain that's creaking, and the loud tinkle. Tinkling is the sound of metal hitting metal. So maybe something like this. Loud, not so deep though. This is too deep. I don't have anything like that. That's a tinkle. The sound of men stamping overhead as they run about. There's the creaking of a chain and the loud tinkle as they check the capstan falls into the ratchet. Muhammad says maybe they used a capstan in the Titanic to descend in small ships. Maybe, because it's something that you would use for either lowering something down or lifting something up, it seems. What are you doing? I'm still. Oh, so still. It's like death. The voice faded away into a deep breath as of one sleeping and the eyes closed again. By this time the sun had risen, and we were all in the full light of day. Dr. Van Helsing placed his hands on Mina's shoulders and laid her head down softly on her pillow. She lay like a sleeping child for a few moments, and then, with a long sigh, awoke and stared in wonder to see us all around her. "Have I been talking in my sleep?" was all she said. She seemed, however, to know the situation without telling, though she was eager to know what she had told. The professor repeated the conversation, and she said, "Then there's not a moment to lose. It may be yet too late." Mr. Morris and Lord Godalming started off for the door, but the professor's calm voice called them back. "Stay, my friends. That ship, wherever it was weighing anchor at the moment in your so great port of London. Which of them is that you seek? God be thanked that we have once again a clue." So maybe what happened is the professor hypnotized Mina, and because she has this special connection with the Count now that she's about to become one of his slaves, when he accessed her unconscious, she was able to connect with the Count and experience whatever he was experiencing at the moment. And because of that, they've discovered where he probably is hiding, somewhere on a ship, in the final box. God be thanked that we have once again a clue, though whither it may lead us we know not. We've been blind somewhat. Blind after the manner of men, since we can look back, we see what we might have seen looking forward, if we had been able to see what we might have seen. That's very confusing. Alas, but that sentence is a puddle, is it not? We can know now what was in the Count's mind when he seized that money. The Jonathan's so fierce knife put him in the danger that even he dread. He meant escape. Hear me, escape. He saw that with but one earth box left, and a pack of men following like dogs after a fox, this London was no place for him. He have take his last earth box on board a ship, and he leave the land. He think to escape. But no, we follow him. Tally-ho! That's an old expression. I guess that must mean something like, let's go. Mohammed says, I do not get the unconscious part. Well, before you came on, Muhammad, Mina had woken up, and the sun had not risen yet, and she said to her husband, "Go get the professor. I want him to hypnotize me." Do you know what that word means? Hypnotize? Have you seen that word before, Muhammad? I'm just asking because Pachu asked about it, so we talked about what does that mean to hypnotize someone. To hypnotize someone is sort of to move past the conscious mind and go straight into the unconscious mind. So what the professor hypnotized her, and when he did that, Mina was able to see, in her mind where the Count was, in her unconscious. Maybe they have like a special connection because she's slowly becoming one of his slaves. Does that make sense? It's a little weird. He have take his last earth box on board a ship and leave the land. He think to escape, but no, we follow him. Tally ho! That means let's go. as friend Arthur would say when he put on his red frock. Our old fox is wily, oh so wily, and we must follow with wile. I too am wily. I think his mind in a little while. In meantime we may rest and in peace, for there are between us which he do not want to pass, and which he could not find if he would, unless the ship were to touch the land, and then only at full slack tide. See, the sun is just rose, and all day to sunset is us. Let us take bath and dress and have breakfast, which we all need, and which we can eat comfortably, since he be not in the same land with us. Muhammad says, "Oh, is it like astral projection?" I guess it's something like that. But somehow she was able to, they said, "Where are you?" "I'm in a ship." But it's like I'm dead. I'm in a box. I can hear people outside working. I can hear the sailors. But I think really what she was experiencing was, where was Dracula? Mina looked at him appealingly as she asked, "But why need we seek him further when he has gone away from us?" He took her hand and patted it as he replied, "Ask me nothing as yet. When we have our breakfast, then I answer all questions." He would say no more, and we separated to dress. After breakfast, Mina repeated the question, and he looked at her gravely for a moment, and then said sorrowfully, "Because, my dear, dear Madam Mina, now more than ever must we find him, even if we have to follow him to the jaws of hell." This is your jaw. So the jaws of hell, that's like the mouth of hell. She grew paler as she asked faintly, "Why?" "Because," he answered solemnly, "he can live for centuries, and you are but mortal woman. Time is now to be dreaded, since once he put that mark upon your throat." I was just in time to catch her as she fell forward to faint. Okay, well, that was the end of chapter 24. So we've got Muhammad and Pachu here, and if they want to practice some vocabulary words and pronunciation, accentuation, and intonation, then don't go anywhere, because we're going to bring them in from Discord. We'll stay here on the video live, and we're going to practice some vocabulary words that we learned in this chapter, but also pronunciation, intonation, and accentuation, which will help you with your listening and also help you to improve your accent. Pachu has said yes. Mohammed, are you going to practice with us tonight? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear for a few minutes. So all I'm going to do is arrange 4 vocabulary words, definitions, and example sentences, so that we have something to work with. So that would take a few minutes. So just be patient, and I'll return, and when I do, Mohammed and Pachu will join us, and we'll practice pronunciation, intonation, accentuation, and vocabulary. All right. Now I have to remember to turn on, because I did a video the other day where I turned off my microphone and I lost the entire last hour and a half. So I have to remember to leave this on. Wait, okay. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. Let me turn off my scary music, my scary Halloween music. And now Pachu and Mohammed are going to join us on Discord. And we're going to practice some of the interesting vocabulary words that we talked about during this chapter. Let me just make sure I've got this all ready to go. And these are the words we're going to practice today. Okay, now we're going over to Discord. All right, hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mohammed, your microphone is on mute. Are you there, Mohammed?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Uh, Pachu, what is our first word today?
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Now, I bet you probably know that word already, but I just chose it because I thought that it's a good word to practice. I think it doesn't get enough attention. Have you seen that word before?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Overwhelming means a lot of work, so that people tired. Yeah.
It means like too much of something. You cannot manage it. It's too much to manage, too much to handle, too difficult to manage.
Yeah.
Have you seen that word before, Mohammed? Overwhelming?
Yes, it's a popular word. I see it all the time.
Yeah, it's a good word. But I figured you both probably knew that word. But I think it's a word that it's good to practice because it's a common word. It's a good word to know. Mohammed, can you read the example sentence that we have?
She felt overwhelming happiness
Mm-hmm.
when she got the job.
Okay, but you know, every time there's a W, that always starts with oo. Oohelming. So it's not velming, but oohelming with an oo. Can you try to say that again with an oo? Overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Pachu, can you read the example sentence?
She felt, sorry. She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
All right. Okay, now if we look at the first four words, she felt overwhelming happiness. Which words do you think deserve
Yeah.
focus?
Overwhelming.
Okay, overwhelming.
Yeah.
And which word should we? Those are two words. We've got over and whelming. Which word do you think we should focus on? Over or whelming?
Overwhelming. Whelming.
Well, if you,
Overwhelming.
what happens when you have two words together? Which word should always be focused upon?
So first,
The first.
rule first.
Mhm. So we should focus
Yeah.
on over, over. Which syllable gets all of the focus? Overwhelming.
Oh,
Oh,
first.
that's right. Oh, maybe we could also focus on the word happiness. Let's do that. Which
Yes.
word should we focus on, or which syllable should we focus on with that word happiness? Happiness.
Is a hap,
Hap.
hap,
Okay.
hap.
So we're making our big, small, big, small, big, small rhythm. She
Yes.
felt overwhelming happiness.
She felt overwhelming happiness.
Mohammed, can you say that? She felt overwhelming happiness.
I have a question about the overwhelming
Uh,
here. I know overwhelming if a task is hard, so it's overwhelming.
mhm.
But this combination, I can't get it.
Well, have you ever been so happy in your life you thought you might die? Are you that lucky that you have ever had such a wonderful feeling?
Not really.
Okay, but you could imagine it? Could you imagine it maybe?
Maybe, yes.
Yeah, that's what it means. So it's good. I mean, it's not bad here. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm so happy maybe I could just die. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so it's a good thing here. It's not a bad thing. Okay.
Okay,
Can you say this?
I will say it.
Can you say the phrase again?
She felt overwhelming happiness.
Okay, she felt overwhelming happiness.
She felt overwhelming happiness.
Okay, now in that final phrase, when she got the job, which words do you
She
think? Go ahead.
which word is important?
Yeah.
God
Which
and the
which word?
God
Mm.
and the job.
Okay. Okay, I agree with you. So we'll make these are easy words to do because they're just one syllable. When she got the job. When she got the job. Can you say it like that? When she got the job.
When she got the job.
Mhm. She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
The job or the job?
The
The. Okay. Say.
when she got the job.
Okay. Say the whole sentence again.
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Okay. Pachu, can you say that final part? When she got the job.
When she got the job,
hmm She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
she felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Okay, Pachu, how many phrases can we divide this sentence into?
So, two.
What are the two phrases?
The first is she felt overwhelming happiness,
Okay.
and next is when she got the job.
Okay. And that first phrase, she felt overwhelming happiness. How would you like that to sound? Do you want it to sound nice and friendly, or do you want it to sound serious?
The happy.
Okay. So, how will you say this word happiness? How should that sound?
So first, happy is strong, or and prince
And
is low, high and low.
okay, so hap will be high, but then we have to
Yeah,
make the final part of the phrase low because phrases usually end low. Happiness.
happiness
hmm And how do you start the phrase?
is a high tone,
Uh,
overwhelming,
oh,
overwhelming,
over is not overwhelming, but overwhelming.
overwhelming,
No, not ming. It's not. You do not. This is not a big sound. Ming is a small sound. Overwhelming.
overwhelming,
hmm Do it with a high tone. Overwhelming.
overwhelming,
Overwhelming happiness.
overwhelming happiness.
She felt overwhelming happiness.
She felt overwhelming happiness.
Mohammed, can you say that? She felt overwhelming happiness.
She felt overwhelming happiness.
Okay. How do you want the Mohammed? How do you want the second phrase to sound? Do you want it to sound nice and friendly and happy, or do you want it to sound serious?
Nice and friendly.
Okay. So, how do we have to pronounce this word job if that's the case?
In high tone.
Okay, but we have a problem. You're right. We have to say it in a high tone to sound nice and friendly, but we have to end our phrase with a low tone because that's how phrases usually end. So we have to go high to low. Job. Job. Can you say that?
job, job,
Mhm. Job. You have to fall while you're doing it. Job.
job,
Okay. And how should we start the phrase?
high tone,
Okay. Got the job.
or gotcha job,
The job or the job?
got the job,
Got the job.
got the job.
When she got the job,
When she got the job,
she felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
she felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Pachu, can you say that final phrase? When she got the job.
When she got the job,
Got the job.
got the job.
Yeah, when she got the job.
When she got the job.
Don't forget to whistle when you say the word she. She.
When when she got the job.
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Okay. Mohammed, can you make a how she feel when get job question?
How did she feel when she got the job?
Okay, the job or the job?
The job.
The job. Say it again.
What did she feel when she got the job?
How did she feel?
How did she feel when she got the job?
In your question, how did she feel? What is the most important word?
How?
How. Okay, so because it's important, you have to make it big. How.
How?
How. How, and then how will you say how plus did plus she?
How did he? How did she?
How did she? The did and she are very small. It's just the how that's big. How did she?
How did she?
Hmm. What about feel? Is that a big word
Yes.
in our question? Okay, so we'll say how did she feel?
How did she feel?
How did she feel when she got the job?
How did she feel when she got the job?
Pachu, can you make that question? How did she feel when she got the job?
How did she feel when she got the job?
Okay, is feel an important word in our question, do you think?
Yes.
So we have to give it a lot of attention. How did she feel?
How did she feel when
Hmm.
she got the job?
See, that's better. That's more natural. It may be weird for you, it may be strange, but that sounds very good. How did she
Yes.
feel when she got the job?
Yes, I see the pattern. Yeah, this is
Well,
high and low.
ex-
But I when I speak in general, it like this same length in all syllables.
yeah, but the trick is
But
the more you practice,
yeah, practice.
then
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it'll just become a habit and you won't have to think about it anymore. But right now we have to practice it a million times. How did she
yeah.
feel when she got the job?
How did she feel when she got the job?
Okay. And what is your answer?
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Mohammed, how did she feel when she got the job?
She felt overwhelming happiness when she got the job.
Okay. Mohammed, do you know this next word, intact? Intact.
No.
Okay.
Mm.
I the because I asked ChatGPT to make these examples, very quickly, and then I saw this one, and I thought, oh, I'm going to pick this because it reminds me of Egypt. Intact means undamaged, unchanged. So, if you think about if you visit a museum in Egypt and you see all of the amazing ancient things, right? Is it sometimes amazing? Uh, have you visited any museums in Egypt?
Yes.
Hmm. And when you see something, sometimes do you see something in perfect condition? Maybe it's 3 or 4,000 years old, and you say, "Oh wow, it looks new."
Yes. Tut, Tom, Tutankhamun, Tom is well preserved.
Very well preserved. Okay, so you can say it's intact.
Yes.
That means it's not damaged. It's in perfect condition. It hasn't changed in many thousands of years. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Can you read the example sentence?
The ancient painting was preserved, preserved, preserved intact in the museum.
What does that mean?
It's like it has all its characteristics has been saved,
Hmm?
not damaged.
Yeah, it's like it's in perfect condition. It looks like new. Maybe not exactly new, but it's in very, very good condition. It's not damaged. It's unchanged. Is that
Yes,
pretty clear what that means?
yes.
Pachu, can you read the example sentence?
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Have you seen that word before? Intact?
Yes, yes,
Yes. Okay, so you're familiar with it. This sentence is pretty clear for you.
yes.
Okay. Can you read the first four words?
The ancient painting was
Okay. What is the second word?
the ancient.
Okay. Pachu, how are you today? What is your
I
answer?
am okay.
No, no, no. What is your normal answer when I ask you, how are you? What do you always say?
I'm fine.
No, you don't. You say great. You always say great.
Okay.
Remember that?
Yes.
That's the same.
Great.
Okay, we have the same sound here. Ancient, ancient. So you start with eh, but then you have to pull your tongue back, like you're making a y sound. A, ancient,
A an ancient.
ancient. Okay, in those four words, which words would you say are very important?
The a- ancient.
Okay,
Ancient.
ancient,
Ancient.
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 I think maybe we could do painting as well. And again,
Yeah.
that's the same sound. That's the same sound that you're having difficulty with. Pain, pain, pain.
Pain. Pain.
Ancient painting,
Pain.
ancient painting.
The 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 ancient painting.
Okay, so, but the words the and was, they'll be very small. The ancient painting was.
The the ancient painting was
Mhm. The ancient painting was. Mohammed, can you say those four words together?
The ancient painting was
Okay. Now, can you read the next three words, Mohammed?
preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, just the next two words is fine. What are
Preserved intact.
okay? Uh-oh. I've gone blurry. I have to fix my camera now. Let me just fix this. It will take a moment. There we go. Okay. Which words do you think should stand out, should sound important in that phrase, preserved intact?
Intact.
Okay. I guess maybe we should be more generous with our accentuation. Maybe we could do both preserved and intact. If we did both of those, if we start with preserved, which syllable should get the accent in preserved?
Preserved. The middle one.
The middle one or the middle one?
The middle one.
The middle one. Okay. And intact. Which syllable will get all of the sound? Intact.
Intact. I hear it like all have the same emphasis.
Okay, if you hear both of
Intact.
them, let's see. Let's try all three. First we'll do the first syllable. Intact. Now let's do the second syllable. Intact. Now let's do both of them. Intact. Which one sounds best? Intact.
The second one.
Yeah, the second syllable. Because if it were both of them, it would sound like this. Intact. That sounds, you could do it like that if you're angry. So
Yes.
it's possible, but only if you're feeling very strong emotions. Intact. I want it intact. But normally it's intact.
Yes.
Can you say that word? Let's say preserved intact.
Preserved intact.
Mm-hmm. The ancient painting was preserved intact.
The ancient painting was preserved intact.
Pachu, can you say preserved intact?
Preserved intact.
Mm-hmm. The ancient painting was preserved intact.
The ancient painting was preserved intact.
Okay. Pachu, what are the final three words in this sentence?
In the museum.
Okay. Now I'm going to say that final. Which word is most important in that phrase?
The museum.
Okay. I'm going to say that word for you, and I want you to think about which is the biggest syllable. Museum. 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 Which is
Mu.
mu? The other ones are not so big. Museum.
Yeah.
Museum.
Museum.
Say
Museum.
it again.
Museum. Museum.
This is small. Museum.
The museum. Museum.
So then we have in the museum.
In the museum. In the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, that's good. Mohammed, can you say that final phrase? In the museum.
In the museum.
In the museum. Museum. Do you know what? I'm sorry. I've made a mistake. It's Z. Z is the sound. Museum. I don't know. See, this is why I can't do these at night. Museum. It's supposed
Museum.
it's supposed to be museum. Pachu, can you say it again? The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
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 Okay. Mohammed, can you say that again?
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, Mohammed, can you make a? Oh wait, let's do intonation. Uh, how many phrases can you divide this sentence into, Mohammed?
Two.
What are the two phrases?
It will first one will end at intact.
Okay. All right. Now, if we look at that first phrase, how would you like that to sound? Do you want it to sound nice and friendly or serious?
Friendly.
Friendly? Okay. So let's do it like this. That means that we have to put some high tones at the end, but of course we have to finish with a low tone because most phrases will finish with a low tone. Let's try this. Was preserved intact.
Was preserved intact.
And how will our phrase start? Will it start high or low?
In high tone.
Yeah, because most phrases in English will start with a high tone and then go down. But now we're going to make a spike with preserved intact, just to make it sound a little bit nicer. The ancient painting was preserved intact.
The ancient painting was preserved intact.
Mm-hmm. Pachu, can you say that phrase? The ancient painting was preserved intact.
The ancient painting was preserved intact.
Okay. Now, in the final phrase, in the museum, how would you like that to sound, Pachu? Would you like that to sound nice and friendly, or do you want it to sound serious?
I was happy.
Happy? Okay. So we'll put a high tone in there, but we have to finish with a low tone because most phrases end with a low tone.
Yeah.
How will our phrase start, Pachu?
In the museum. Museum.
In the museum. In the
In
museum.
the museum.
In the museum.
In the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact. In the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Okay. Mohammed, can you say in the museum?
In the museum.
Okay. The ancient painting was preserved intact. In the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
All right. Mohammed, can you make a where ancient painting preserved intact question?
Where did the ancient painting was preserved?
What is in our?
So I will try again.
Go ahead. Uh-huh.
Where did the ancient painting state when we saw it in the museum?
What is the verb in this sentence? The ancient painting was preserved intact. What is the principal verb, or what is the verb that we need to work with? Not the principal verb. But what is the most important verb? If you're making a question or a negative, which verb is it important to consider here?
The problem is I want to convert the verb into noun, which is preserved.
Well, you know, the problem really is that you have a passive voice sentence. So here, let's make an active voice sentence for a minute. We have they preserved the painting. Okay. This is an active voice sentence. That means that the focus is on who is doing the action, which is preserve. Okay. So preserve is the verb. Do you agree? Is that does that make sense to you that preserve is the verb?
Yeah.
What is the so that's focusing on who is doing the action. But sometimes we don't really care about this part here. We don't care about who. So in this case, maybe we can make this passive. How will you make this sentence passive, Mohammed? Do you know how to do that?
The painting was preserved.
The painting
Preserved
preserved. Okay. So now in our first sentence, what is the verb?
preserved
Preserved. Now in our second sentence, what is the verb?
was
Well, it's really two words. Okay, it's was preserved. It's two words. All right. But when you're thinking about making a question or when you're thinking about making a negative, because sometimes a verb can be very long, it can be several words long, which is confusing. But when you're thinking about making a question or when you're thinking about making a negative sentence, only the first word is important. You only have to think about the very first word. So, what is the first word in our verb?
preserved.
That's the second word. What is the first word?
Was
Okay. So, how do you make a question with the verb to be?
was the painting preserved?
That's right. That's right. That's the question form. If you have the verb to be, this is how you make a question. Was the painting preserved? How would you make a where question? So that's the question form, the basic question form. Let's make a more interesting, complicated question. How would you make a where question?
Where was the painting preserved?
Where was the painting preserved? That's right. Where was the ancient well, let's see. Where was the let's do the whole thing. Where was the ancient painting preserved? We'll even say intact. Intact. Can you make that say that question? Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Okay, that's right. What is your most important word in that question?
Where?
Okay, where? So let's make it big. Where? Where?
Where?
How will you say where plus was plus the?
Where was the?
Where was the?
Where was the?
Okay. What about the word ancient and painting? Are those important words?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll pronounce it like this. Where was the ancient painting?
Where was the ancient painting?
Okay. And how about preserved intact? Are those important words also?
Intact
Okay.
is important. Yes.
Okay. Intact. So we make it big. We'll make that tact very big. Intact.
Intact.
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Pachu, can you make that question?
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
So, but if the word where is important, then you should make it sound bigger. Where was the?
Where was the?
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
Okay, what is the answer, Pachu, to that question?
The ancient painting preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, museum. Museum.
In the museum.
Museum.
In the
Make it longer. Museum.
in the museum. The museum.
So let's let's say that again, but remember that we have to make the special syllables extra long. The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact
Mm,
in the museum.
museum, not museum. I'm sorry, that was my fault. I made a mistake earlier.
In the museum.
Z,
Museum.
Z is the big sound. Z is the big sound. Museum.
Mu- museum. Museum.
Hmm. Now,
Museum.
the word preserved, preserved. Where's the big
Yeah,
sound?
preserved.
Hmm.
Preserved.
Okay,
Preserved.
what about the er? Is that a sound that you eat down in your throat, or is that a sound that you push out? Er.
Yeah, it.
Right. Also v. Is that a sound that you push down in that you eat, or is that a sound that you push out of your mouth? V.
Uh, yeah, push down.
That's right. So what happens to if you have this situation?
Make strong.
Make it longer. Make it much longer.
Longer.
Preserved.
Preserved.
Yeah, because if you
Preserved.
preserved, I don't know, maybe people understand you, maybe not. I don't know. But if you say preserved, people will always understand you.
Yeah, so I think in my exam, one task is to repeat the sentence. So if I do in this way, then the algorithm recognize well and give marks. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to
Okay.
pay attention. That's important to do that. Preserved
Yeah.
intact.
Preserved
You have
intact.
to take your time. Don't be in a hurry. The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, that's good. Muhammad, where was the ancient painting preserved intact?
The ancient painting was preserved intact in the museum.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's move on to our third vocabulary word, which is a phrasal verb. Muhammad, do you know this phrasal verb? This is a very common phrasal verb. Have you seen it before?
No.
Okay. Well, it's useful to know. I mean, see, now remember earlier we were talking about literal phrasal verbs and abstract phrasal verbs. And I'm sure that you know the literal meaning of turn up, which means to increase the intensity of something. So turn up the volume. Turn up anything when you say turn up, it means make it bigger. And it's very literal.
Yeah.
Turn up, right? Do you understand that? That's very literal.
Yes, I got this.
Okay, so you could look at the word turn and the word up and you could say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Turn up. But this is the same phrasal verb, the same two words, but it has a different meaning. What does this one mean? Turn up, if it's abstract. That means to
Okay.
that means to appear suddenly, unexpectedly, by magic. Turn up. Okay, that's abstract. Mohammed, can you
Yes.
read the example sentence?
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
What does that mean? What is the idea?
Uh, she didn't expect him to attend the party.
Yeah, okay. The party or the party?
The party.
Hmm. Okay. If a phrasal verb is abstract, which word will get attention, the verb or the preposition?
Verb. Turn.
Right. So she didn't expect him to turn up at the party. So we can
She
automatically go ahead.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
Yeah, so we can automatically emphasize that word. We know we're going to emphasize that word turn up. Turn up. Pachu, can you read the example sentence? What does it say?
She didn't expect him to turn up the party.
Okay, but we want to make turn longer. Turn up. It's a big special word here. Turn up.
Is turn off.
Tur-
Turn off.
Not off. Don't say off. That's a different phrasal verb. You have to say up.
Turn up.
Turn
Turn up.
turn up. Turn up.
Turn up.
Okay.
Turn up.
Turn up. That's right. Okay. Pachu.
Yes.
The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. Can you read the first 5 words?
She didn't expect him to.
Okay. What word do you think would be special in that phrase? Which word should we put all of our attention on?
With expect.
Okay, expect. And where's the accent? Which syllable is special in that word?
Expect. Pect.
Pecked. Pecked or spect. Probably spect. But there's no S there. You can't, the S is invisible. So we'll just put the expect. Spect. Spect.
Expect.
How would you say
Expect.
the word expect plus him?
Expect him.
Expect him.
Expect him.
Expect him. Expect him.
Expect him.
How would you
Expect him.
how would you say expect plus him plus 2?
Expect him to.
Mm-hmm. Or the way that I would say it would be like duh. Expect him to.
Okay. So expect him to.
Expect him.
Expect him to.
Expect him to. Now let's add. We've got this small she didn't ek. She didn't ek. She didn't ek. She didn't ek.
She didn't ask.
Ek. Just ek. We'll put the S with spect. So it's just ek. She didn't ek.
She didn't act.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't
She
act.
didn't ek. She didn't ek.
She didn't act.
She didn't expect him to.
She didn't act. She didn't expect.
She didn't expect him to.
She didn't ask. She didn't expect him to.
Okay. Mohammed, can you say that phrase? She didn't expect him to.
She didn't act him to.
Okay. You can say to. That would be fine. And most people, but most people will make, because to is a very long, inconvenient sound for such a common word. So it just becomes ta or da. Ta or da. That's much easier to say. She didn't expect him to.
She didn't expect him to.
Mm-hmm. Expect him to.
Expect him to.
Mm-hmm.
To.
She didn't
To.
expect him to.
She didn't expect him to.
Okay. Now, Mohammed, the final phrase, turn up at the party. We already know that turn is going to be an important word. Are there any other important words in that phrase?
Party.
Okay. That has 2 syllables. Which syllable gets all of the attention? Party.
First one.
The first one. Okay. Turn up at the party.
Turn up the party at the party.
Can you say up at the?
Party.
Say up at the like it's one word. Up at the.
Up to the.
A
Up to the.
apatha. Apatha.
Up. Up the.
Apatha.
Up the.
Up at the party.
Up to the bar. Up the bar.
Uh,
I can't.
it's hard. Apatha. Apatha.
Up the.
Uh,
Up the.
say
Up.
Say just not up.
Uh. Uh.
Pa. Say pa.
The.
Apatha.
The.
Apatha.
Up the.
Up at the party.
Up the party.
Turn up at the
Party.
party. Turn up at the party.
Turn up. Turn up the party.
Okay. She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up the party.
Okay, great. Pachu, can you say the final phrase? Turn up at the party.
Turn up the party.
Can you say up?
Up.
Can you say
A.
Can you say pa?
A pat.
Not at, just pa.
A pa.
Apatha.
A pad.
Apatha.
Apeda.
Turn up at the party.
Turn up the party.
Apatha.
Turn up at the.
Apatha. Apatha.
Up at the.
Turn
Up
up
at the.
party.
Turn up the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up the party.
Turn up at the. You forgot the word up.
Turn up the party.
Now you're missing the word at. Turn up at the. Turn up at the party.
Turn up
Up at the.
the party.
Turn up at the. Up at the.
Turn up there the party.
Can you say
Uh
Can you say pa?
the pan
Pa?
pan
Up at the.
pad the
Turn up at the party.
turn up the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up the party.
Okay. Pachu, how many phrases can you divide this sentence into?
Is it two?
Two? All right. What are the two phrases?
She didn't expect him to turn up.
Okay, she didn't expect him to turn up. That's one phrase. And the
Yeah.
at
And
the party.
the last is
Okay.
at the party.
Now, how do you want this to sound? Would you like it to sound nice and happy and friendly, or do you want it to sound serious?
The happy.
Happy? Okay. So that means we'll have to put some high tones at the end of the phrase, but we also have to put some low tones because phrases normally end in a low tone. So this will be turn up, turn up.
Just turn up.
hmm
Just turn up.
How will your phrase start, Pachu?
The expect is high.
Okay.
Expect.
She didn't expect him to turn up. She didn't expect him to turn up.
She didn't expect him to turn up.
Okay. Mohammed, can you read that? She didn't expect him to turn up.
She didn't expect him to turn up.
Okay. And how about the final phrase, Mohammed, at the party? How would you like that to sound? Nice and friendly, or do you want it to sound serious?
Friendly.
Friendly? Okay. So that means we'll have to uh, add a high tone to the end, but we'll have to finish low. So this will sound like party, party, party.
Party.
Okay. How will the phrase start?
Party.
Party. How will the phrase start?
At the party. At the party.
Mm-hmm. We'll start high because most phrases start high. At the party.
At the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
Mm-hmm. Pachu, can you say the entire phrase?
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
Uh-huh. Pachu, can you
So,
go ahead?
so I just want to memorize the sentence without looking and want to say it
Okay,
is works or not.
go
Yeah,
and try.
because I have to do in my exam,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have to practice. Otherwise, yeah,
Go
it
ahead and
is
try it without looking then. Don't look and try it.
okay. So she didn't expect him to turn. Okay. So she didn't expect him to turn at the party. At the
Okay.
party.
Now you said turn. If you only say turn, that means move in a circle. So you have to be very careful and say turn up because that means appear.
Okay.
If you only say turn, that just means moving in a circle. Try it
Okay.
again.
So so she didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
That's right. Yeah, okay. Try to use some intonation. Try to use some music.
Okay.
High low.
Okay. Okay. So she didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
Turn up. Turn up. High low. She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party.
Longua Juji says, "How do you join the live video with the educator?" Uh, Lingua, there's a Lingua Juji. There's a link to the Discord server in the in the chat. So if you want to join, you can click on that link and join the Discord server. But we really only work with two people at a time. It gets confusing if there are too many. But if you continue watching, sometimes there's a space available and you can join with us. Judy, okay, that's easier than Lingua Juji. Judy, so you can join the Discord server, and when there's only one person or no people, then we can practice. Mohammed, can you make a why not expect question? Why not expect?
Um,
Why not she expect? How would you do that? That's a difficult one.
why? What
Why?
did she?
Why not? Why? How would you make a why not question? That's kind of difficult. How would you do that? Why not? Why she not expect him? How would you do that?
Why? Why wasn't she? Why didn't she?
Yeah. Keep going.
Ex- why didn't she expect him to turn up
At the party. hmm
at the party?
Say it again.
Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
Okay, but it's not Barty. You're eating your pea. You're pushing your pea. You're pushing your pea down and making a B. A B. A B sound is a P that you eat. Okay, but we don't want that. We want you to push the P out and say party.
Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
That's better. That was better. Okay. What is your most important word in that question?
Why?
Why? Okay. How would you pronounce the word why plus didn't plus she?
Why didn't she?
Why didn't she?
Why didn't she?
Why didn't she expect him?
Why didn't she expect him?
Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
Now, is it Barty? Are you eating? Are you eating that, or should you push that out when you say that?
Or is it out? Party.
Party. That's right. You have to push it out. Don't push it down. Push it out. Party.
Party.
hmm Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
Why did she expect him to turn up at the party?
That's right. Okay, Pachu, can you make that? How will you make that question?
Yeah, we just add why she didn't expect him to turn at the party.
Oh, you have to use the question form. That was not a question.
Why didn't she expect him to turn at the party?
Okay. Did you say turn or turn up?
As a turn up,
Turn up. Turn up.
turn up,
Okay.
turn up.
Don't forget to whistle when you say the word she. She.
She, she,
hmm Why did
yeah.
she expect him to turn up at the party?
Why didn't she expect him to turn at the party?
Judy says this
Turn up.
channel was created on the same date as my birthday. Well, this is your lucky channel then. That means you have to watch all of my videos. Okay, why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party? Okay.
Why okay? Why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
Okay. Let's say because they had a fight. Because they had a fight. How would you answer that? Tell me, Pachu, tell me everything. She didn't expect turn up, party, because fight.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party because of fight.
Because they had a fight.
Because they had a fight.
They had a.
They had a
They
they
had a,
had a fight.
they had a fight.
Because they had a fight.
Okay. She didn't expect him to turn up at the party because they had a fight.
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party because they had a fight.
Okay, that was good. Mohammed, why didn't she expect him to turn up at the party?
She didn't expect him to turn up at the party because they had a fight.
Because they had a fight.
Because they had a fight.
Okay. All right. One more. This is our final word for tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Mohammed, can you read number 4? What does number 4 say?
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
What have you seen that word before? Radiate?
Yes, it's a kind of scientific word.
Oh, it could be a scientific word.
Uh,
What does that mean to you?
Ecology is the sun radiates light.
Yeah, radiate means giving out, pushing out, giving out to everyone. Pachu, have you seen that word before? Radiate?
Yes.
Okay. Can you read the sentence, Pachu?
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
What does that mean? Can you explain that to me? What does that word? What does that sentence mean to you?
So her smile made happiness
Yeah, give
in the room.
to everyone.
Yeah.
It's going to everyone, right? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Muhammad, can you read the first four words? What are the first four words in that sentence?
Her smile seemed to.
Okay. If you had to select one word that seemed important to you in that phrase, what?
Smile.
Okay.
Smile.
The smile seemed to. I don't know. I think if you said smile, I think that would mean something not neutral. That would mean something very special, like not her clothes, not her hair, not her conversation, but her smile. I think seemed would be a safer word in a neutral sentence, because the thing is you can emphasize any word, but it will change the meaning. But I think if this sentence has no special meaning, then I think the word seemed would be the best word to focus on. Does that make sense to you, or is that confusing?
Yes, makes sense.
Yeah, because if you say, for example, if I say her smile, that means not his, not theirs, not mine, her smile. So if you choose to emphasize that word, then it has a special meaning. And if you say her smile seemed to radiate, that means not her clothes, not her hair, not her laugh, but her smile. But I think seemed is a word that doesn't really change the idea too much. Okay. Can you say those?
Okay.
Can you say those four words together? But just emphasize the word seemed, and the other words we don't want to emphasize them. We want to make them very small.
Her smile seemed to.
Her smile seemed to. Her smile seemed
Her,
to.
sm- her smile seemed to.
Mm-hmm. Her smile seemed to. Pachu, can you say that? Her smile seemed to.
Her smile seemed to
Okay. Pachu, can you read the next three words?
radiate happiness too.
Okay. What do you think we could focus on in those three words? How many special words are there?
Is it two?
Okay, what are the two special words in that phrase?
Is a radiate and happiness.
Uh, Judy is saying, is the pronunciation American? Yes, yes, I'm from Chicago, so that's pretty American. Can you, so in that word radiate, which syllable has all of the strength, all of the power?
Is a radiate,
Okay,
rad.
no, but that's your favorite sound, Pachu. That's not re. It's ray. It's two sounds together. Ray.
Rai,
Ray.
rai,
Like
rai,
great. Great.
great,
Ray.
right,
Ray.
rai,
Ray.
rai,
Radiate. Radiate.
radiate,
Radiate.
radiate, radiate.
Okay. How about the word happiness? Which syllable has all of the power? Happiness.
Happiness, happiness,
Happy.
hap,
Which one?
hap,
Hap.
happiness,
Okay. Happiness. Happiness.
happiness,
Happiness.
happiness.
Happiness. Okay. So now we're building our big small rhythm. Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Okay. Mohammed, can you read all of those words? Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Hmm. Can you try to emphasize those big words of those big syllables a little bit more? Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Okay. And Mohammed, what are the last 5 words in this phrase?
To everyone in the room.
Okay. And which words do you think could be special that we should emphasize?
Everyone.
Okay. Everyone in the room. What about room? Do you think we should emphasize room?
No.
No? Okay.
Everyone.
All right. Now, if you have 2 words together, like everyone, which word will normally get all of the attention?
First word.
Okay, the first word. When you have 2 words together, it's usually the first word that will get all of the attention. Every. Which syllable has all of the power in that word?
First.
The first syllable? Okay, so this was pronounced
Yes.
everyone, everyone, everyone,
Everyone.
everyone in the,
Everyone in the.
everyone in the room.
Everyone in the room.
Okay. Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Pachu, can you say everyone in the room?
Everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay. Pachu, how many phrases can we divide this sentence into?
So 2.
2. What are the 2 phrases?
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness
Okay. That's one phrase. And the other phrase?
to everyone in the room.
All right. Now, Pachu, how will you like this first phrase to sound? Do you want it to sound happy and nice, or do you want it to sound serious?
As a happy, happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how will we pronounce this final word, happiness?
As a happy is high and
Okay.
other part the ness
So
is low.
we'll give it a high tone to begin with, so that it sounds
With
happy.
the red.
But we have to finish in a low tone because most phrases end in a low tone.
Yes.
Happiness, happiness,
Happiness.
happiness.
Happiness
How will our phrase start?
is a radiate is
Uh,
high.
I not
Seemed is also high.
not radiate, radiate. You have to pronounce that e in ray.
Radiate. Radiate.
Radiate.
Radiate.
That was
Radiate.
that last one was pretty good. Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Mohammed, can you say that phrase? Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness.
Okay. And Mohammed, in the final phrase, how will you like that to sound? Would you like it to sound nice and friendly and happy or serious?
Nice.
Okay. So, how should we pronounce? Well, let's see. What we'll have to do is we'll have to make our special word high, but also begin the phrase high. We don't have much room. We don't have much room here, but maybe we'll make this whole word high. Okay, but we'll finish low because most phrases finish low. So this will sound like to everyone in the room.
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 Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Pachu, can you say the whole phrase?
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay, is it radiate or radiate?
Radiate, radiate,
Ray. You got to push your tongue on
ray,
top. Ray.
ray,
Ray.
ray,
Ray. Radiate.
right,
That was good.
radiate,
Radiate. Great.
radiate, radiate. Yes,
Radiate. Great. Her smile seemed to
great.
radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay. Uh, let's see. What kind of question could we make? Pachu, do you know this phrasal verb come across?
Yes,
What does it mean to you, come across? So I think we practiced that before, but probably in a different way.
is a meet unexpectedly.
That's true. Okay. But another way that it can be used means uh, perceive
Okay,
or
proceed.
interpret. So if we made a question, how she come across?
How did she come across?
That's right. What does that mean, though? If you say, how did she come across to everyone in the room? What does that mean?
Means how she perceived
Yeah,
to everyone.
how did the people see her? How did the people interpret her her feelings or her emotions or her energy? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes,
Okay, that's pretty common. That's a pretty so we've seen come across means to find something by accident, but another way that you can use that phrasal verb means to perceive or interpret something that you see. So oh no, sorry about that. Okay. So this means how did the people see her? How did they interpret her energy? How did they feel her energy?
yes.
Can you make that question again, Pachu? How do you say that?
How did she come across to everyone in the room?
Okay. And when you make that question, what is the most important word?
Is a how did how
How.
how
How. So how will you say how plus did plus she?
how did how did she
How
how did she
how did she?
how did she
Hmm.
how did she
How did she? Mohammed, can
how
you go ahead, say it again.
how did she
How
how did she
how did she? How did she?
how did she how did she
Mohammed, can you say that? How did she?
How did she come across
Hmm.
to everyone in the room?
Okay. Uh, what do you think about that phrasal verb, Mohammed, come across? Do you think that this is literal or do you think that this is abstract?
Maybe abstract.
How did she come across? How did she come across? How did she come across? Okay. So, how will you say that? Which word will you emphasize if it's abstract?
Um,
Come? Okay. So, how did she come across?
how did she come across?
Okay. And how will you finish the question?
How did she come across to everyone in the room?
How did she come across to everyone in the room?
How did she come across to everyone in the room?
Mm-hmm. And what is the answer?
She came across as a, a people person who radiate her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay, we can do it the easy way. We can say her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room. Or you can make your own answer, which I like. What did you say? She came across as, which is fine. That's exactly what you should say, as. She came across as, what word would you give someone who radiates happiness? How would you describe someone who radiates happiness?
An lighted person,
What word could we use? Friendly or social or cheerful? What kind of word do you think we could use there?
cheerful,
Okay, but now remember, it's not cheerful; it's cheerful.
cheerful,
Yeah, some sounds are big, and it's really important to make them big if you want to be understood well. Cheerful.
cheerful.
Judy has a question. Go ahead and ask your question, Judy. Okay, so you can say she came across as cheerful.
She came across as a cheerful,
Okay, if you say you need a noun. Cheerful is not a noun. You can say a cheerful person, or you can just say cheerful. She
uh,
crosses cheerful.
she came across as a cheerful.
Good. Or you can say her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay, Judy says, what does pred mean? I've never seen the word pred before. Are you sure that's the right way to spell it? Or where did you find that word? Because I've never seen that word before. Pachu, how did she come across to everyone in the room?
She came across as cheerful to everyone in the room.
As. She came across as cheerful.
She, she came across as cheerful to
Mhm.
everyone in the room.
She came across as cheerful to everyone in the room. That as means like similar, she or related to, something like that. She came across as cheerful to everyone in the room. Or go ahead and say that one more time.
She came across as cheerful to everyone in the room.
Or what is the alternative answer? Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Radiate or radiate?
Radiate, radiate,
Re,
radiate,
radiate.
radiate,
Her smile
radiate.
radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Her smile seemed to radiate happiness to everyone in the room.
Okay, great. All right. I think I will be returning in about 9 hours to do another reading of Gone with the Wind. We're getting close to the end of that book. That's a very, very long book, but we're almost finished with it.
Yeah.
So if you want to practice more, I will be returning in about 8 or 9, I think 9 hours from now. Okay. And thank you, everyone, for your questions, and thank you for participating, Mohammed and Pachu. And I hope you come back and we can work together again. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Have a good morning or night,
Good night.
whatever it is. Bye bye.
Bye bye.